You are now listening to The Unwavering, the movement dedicated to educating and empowering the brave men and women who have or are still serving our great nation. What's up, guys? This is Kevin with another episode of The Unwavering. Today, before we begin, just a huge shout out to the entire military community. All those of you on active duty, the reserves, the veterans, the retirees. We wouldn't be here doing this if it wasn't for you guys, so we truly hope that our content is having a positive impact on you and your families. Today is something that I've really been talking to a lot of those I served with about, and that is career opportunities after the military. A conversation that I like to have with people regardless of their rank, what branch they served in, is was their education and the training they received what they wanted to do once they exited the military? And if so, did things go according to plan, or did they have to perhaps pursue a different avenue? And so we're kind of going to get into that a little bit today. I'm going to go ahead and hand the mic over to my buddy Jose, let him introduce himself, and we'll get into today's episode.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? My name is Jose Noah. I served as a sergeant for a little bit over 9 years at the United States Marine Corps. Initially started off as an ordnance man for the AVAB Harry community, then transitioned over to the Prowlers. Once I moved to Virginia, I worked on the CH-53s, V-22s, CH-60s, and the CH-3s. Currently, working for TCOM, the Training and Education Command, as a civilian capacity for the Marine Corps. And I'm currently working on the SharePoint environment as a project manager, profile manager, and web design.
Awesome. Well, Jose, before we get into it, man, where's that accent from? Where are you coming from?
So my nationality is Dominican, but I'm from New York.
From New York. All right,
Yes,
man. Well,
yes, sir.
Hey, appreciate you coming on board today.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I'm just excited to talk to people today about what happens when either your job doesn't directly translate, or maybe you do have certain experiences and certifications, but there's no job openings in the civilian world, right? So you and I had a conversation a few weeks ago about this, but before we get into that today, can you give us a little bit of insight as to your experience in the military? You told us a little bit, but what was your job actually like? You know, what was the sense of belonging? What was kind of your day-to-day operations?
Sure. So my job as an aviation ordnance man, starting off, it's different levels. So starting off, you're the workhorse. You're the little Lance Corporal, little PFC. So whatever you're told to do, you have to do it. Especially in a community such as ordnance, which everyone's always trying to outshine everyone, and you have to show you're the best of the best of the best, right? So as a Lance Corporal, you have to show that you're better than everybody else. And with all that being said, there's just so much competition that you're bound to mess up somewhere. So there's going to be downfalls where you're going to feel like you don't belong. There's going to be downfalls where you're going to be like, man, I can't do this. I need to change MOS. I got to do something else. Obviously, there's some leaders out there that help pick you up, help show you the way as you go through. And as you're going through the ranks, you start realizing the type of leader that you want to be. So you want to be like Corporal so-and-so, Sergeant so-and-so. So you start emulating what they do. So ultimately you get to a point where now you're the leader. Now you're teaching a new breeds of Marine how you were taught in a better way, like how not to do things, how to do certain type of things. So as far as the sense of belonging in the ordnance community, it's tough love. It's definitely tough love, which you really have to get used to. But luckily, I progressed through that, and then ultimately I became an ordnance chief, which was amazing. Responsible for everything and in charge of everything, making sure that people know what they're doing. And my favorite part of it was training everyone, teaching people how to do what they need to do in a safe manner.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you guys who are listening who may not be, as savvy when it comes to aviation or ordnance, what we're talking about, Jose's job field, or MOS as we call it in the Marine Corps. So ordnance is the guys that you are trusting with multiple things. You're trusting them with weapon systems, explosives, ordnance, ammunitions, but you're also trusting them with the things that people don't often think about outside of the military. You know, if your aircraft is having issues and it has to eject a certain part of the aircraft to save itself in a sense, like let's say you have a Humvee hooked up to your helicopter and for some reason the hook won't disengage and that Humvee is swinging out of control. Well, there are small CADs or small explosive devices that will explode and send a really sharp piece of metal, a blade, to cut through that strap, severing the tie to the Humvee. That way, instead of taking the whole aircraft down and killing everyone on board, it just drops the Humvee. You know, it pickles the load. So there's a great deal of responsibility in what Jose is talking about. For him to have that type of weight on his shoulders as a sergeant, where he's responsible not just for rockets and ammunition, but he's responsible for systems that are in place to save the lives of pilots, air crew, and everyone on board. I mean, it does give you a sense of belonging and, a sense that, hey, my job is important. I don't know if we've really covered that in the past on previous episodes, but everybody has different jobs and we all have different things that we bring to the table. But I think the one thing that's universal is for a lot of people, whether they're on active duty or they're now veterans, that's something that we talk about all the time. Is like, man, when I was in, I felt like I belonged. I felt like I was doing something that actually mattered. So, yeah, it's just awesome to have your take, hearing the real truth that, hey, it's a tough love community, but you're an example. You made it from a private all the way to sergeant within that community. I'm sure you had incredible experiences. You probably had negative ones as well, as do most of us, but you continued to push. And once you got into that position where you were able to help others and train them, that's when you said, okay, now it's my time to make a difference and show them right from wrong, regardless of how I got brought up.
Thank you, Kev. I think you explained that a little bit better than than what I could have. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So like you said, it's not just CADs or cartridge actuated devices. It's also munitions such as 500 pounds explosives, 2,000 pounds explosives, rockets, flares, missiles, anything that you can think that goes boom. That's what we dealt with, and hearing it from somebody outside of that community puts it into that much more perspective. The reason being is because once you're in it, once you're doing it day to day, that's your job, right? You don't realize the danger. It's like you become accustomed to it. Okay, this could happen. Oh well, let's keep working. Let's work so that it doesn't happen. But looking at it from the outside in, just like you pointed out, you're like, wow, it is kind of a dangerous field. But once you're in that field, you really don't think of the dangers, more the safeties as opposed to the dangers.
Yeah, and it's important, for both. Like we always talk about complacency. Once you get accustomed to a certain thing or you've done it so many times, sometimes people start to think like, oh, I've done this a million times. Luckily, that was never the case on any of the jobs that you worked on. I felt safe flying all the time, or even working on chaff and flare systems, anything that had to do with explosives. I knew that your shop was going to take care of us, so I felt pretty confident in that. But now that leads into what we wanted to talk about today. So obviously, your background, your upbringing when it comes to the Marine Corps is based primarily in ordnance, in aviation, and explosive devices. But what was it like when you were transitioning out of the Marine Corps? What were you going through leaving a place where you had earned the right to be seen as the chief of your shop? Like, hey, you're the subject matter expert. Now you're getting out of the Marine Corps and becoming a civilian, where you essentially are starting from scratch. What was that like?
So, like you mentioned, you're leaving a shop where you're like, okay, I'm the chief of this shop right now. I'm the chief of my MOS right now, so I know what I'm doing. I am an expert. I'm a subject matter expert at this field. So, like anyone would think, it'll be easy for me to get a job. I'm the chief. Come to find out, it's not as easy as you might think. Trying to get a job in the ordnance community, it is extremely difficult. I applied for anything and everything that you can think of that has to do with explosives. Like I told you before, I even applied for Disney World. Let me work on the pyrotechnics over there. They said nope. So it was tough. Got knocked off that high horse real quick. Leaving that community and going back to the civilian sector is difficult. I applied everywhere. I obviously got no luck with anything as far as munitions was concerned. I remember going through a stage where I would apply for anything. I even applied to be a garbage man, and no luck. Once I left the Marine Corps, it was about 6 or 7 months I was out of a job. And during that period, depression hits. You're thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to provide for my family? Obviously, they look up to me so I can provide for them. So how am I going to continue to provide for them given the field that I just left? Like, it's difficult finding a job within that field. So I decided to get any job that would hire me at any point. I remember one day I called the VA and I told them, hey, I would like to apply for your vocational rehab program. They say, not a problem. Come on in. So what vocational rehab, voc rehab is, they'll train you to do a specific job. Once you're trained within that job, they will find you a job within that field that you have just been trained. So prior for them training you, you need to take an aptitude test, for example, like an exam. I remember they told me to go down to the VA office. So I went down there and I seen about maybe 25 other people just ready to take the test. Took the test. It was about, I would say 45 minutes to an hour, just a bunch of questions. Once we were done, they told us to wait. We're going to get assigned a counselor, someone who's going to talk to you about which field you're best to excel in. Once it was my turn, I sat down with the counselor. You know what they told me? They told me, we don't have any money right now for anything. We'll call you back in about three months.
And this was, I apologize, this was already, what, 5-6 months in?
Yes.
Oh, man.
After taking the test, after waiting the time, and then I went to go see the counselor within that same day. They told me, we'll take your information, we'll send you an email, or we'll give you a call once the funds open back up. And now you can imagine my heartbreak. I'm like, oh my God, how much longer am I going to suffer? Like, I need a job. I'll take anything. And about 2 weeks, I would say 3 weeks after I took that test, I get a phone call from a school, computer technology school. They call me, hey, we found your information on the internet. We were wondering if you wanted to come down and learn about computers. I said yes. As soon as he said you want to come down and learn about computers, I said yes. This would be the perfect opportunity for me to use my VA, my post 9/11 bill. I'll do it, because within that time I didn't know what field I wanted to go to, and I just didn't want to waste that money. So they told me, hey, come over. I'm like, I'm coming over. Scheduled a tour. I already knew I was gonna go before I even went. So they just showed me the tour. They told me, hey, this is what you want to do. This is what you're going to do. I'm like, I'll do it. Teach me everything that I need to know about computers. And before I get ahead of myself, all right, so the training was about 5 weeks each class, and there were about 6 classes. So I was there for a while, but there was a problem, and I hope your listeners don't make the same mistake that I did. So by going to that voc rehab, your post 9/11 funds, they shift over from post 9/11 to voc rehab. So when the school tried to charge post 9/11, the VA say, no, you can't take that money. It's already allocated for voc rehab. So that was a big mess that I needed to fix with the VA. Told them, hey, I'm no longer doing the vocational rehab. Please put it back to the 9/11 so I can pay for the school. The school deals with the post 9/11 all the time. So they were like, don't worry about it. It'll get fixed. It took about maybe 2-3 months, and I'm sorry, guys, you still haven't got paid. They were like, yo, don't worry about it. It'll get fixed. It's the VA. They're going to fix it. So they didn't bother me for no money. They didn't bother me for anything. They just were like, hey, we just want you to get your education and keep on going.
That's crazy. I had no idea about that. So if you guys did hear that, please make sure to pass the word to others. Apparently, once you show interest and start going down the path of voc rehab, your allocations get shifted from post 9/11, so your ordinary college, universities, over to the voc rehab program. So yeah, don't make this same mistake, because I think Jose got extremely lucky in going to a school that understood some of the pitfalls that come with the VA. Sometimes they have so many things going on that it does take a while for them to fix certain issues. So if you guys are thinking about Voc Rehab and they tell you, like they said to him, hey, we're out of funds currently, say, okay, that's fine. I appreciate it. But make sure you talk to the VA and say, hey, I was at Voc Rehab, but they said they no longer have funds. I would like to transfer my education benefits back to the post 9/11 GI education bill, because otherwise you're going to go through an event like this, which is wild. I would have never thought about that. So I'm glad that you mentioned it.
Yeah, and you can imagine another 3 months with no income because the VA is not paying, the post 9/11 is not paying the school, so I'm not getting paid. A little side note, Kevin, check this out. So while I was going to school, I decided to apply for unemployment, and this right here just really annoys me a little bit. I applied for unemployment. Once I did, they ask you a series of questions. Okay, so are you currently working? Obviously, no. That's why I'm applying. Are you willing to work? Yes. One of the questions that they asked me, and I'm never gonna forget this. They asked me, if you're offered a job, would you leave school? I said no. Like, why would I leave school for a job? I can go to school and have a job. Come to find out, they declined my request for unemployment because of that question. Because I would not leave school if I was to be offered a job. And that is insane, Kevin.
That is wild. So because you wanted to continue your education and that was your primary goal, your primary focus, they denied you benefits?
Correct. They denied unemployment benefits. And I explained to the person asking the questions, I can go to work after school or before school, but I'm not going to leave my education just because I got offered a job. It just doesn't make sense. The system doesn't work like that. So because of that, because I answered that question as a no, I got denied those benefits.
That is absolutely insane. You are bringing some things that, I mean, sure, there's probably a few out there who have experienced a similar situation, but I think for the most part, many of us don't know that. And I'm interested in what you just said about that, because I do have a friend that works in DC government. Hopefully I can kind of ask that question. Obviously not specifics, but hey, what does this question mean? Is it fair that if someone's pursuing their education, that's an automatic disqualifier because you're not making money? And in your case, you definitely weren't making money. The VA wasn't paying you for months. So, it's not like you had a revenue coming in or anything
Right,
like that.
right.
You were working towards your education to get a job to support your family. It's not like you were out messing around. So thank you for bringing those things up, because I think that's really the whole purpose of this. Is we want to educate people on benefits that they can use for them, their family members, but we also want to bring to light some of those taboo things or some of the things that people fail to mention. And people have failed to mention that if you go to Voc Rehab, your funds get allocated to a different set of educational benefits. Like, that's something I haven't heard before. I also didn't hear about filing for unemployment and being a student and how that can get complicated depending on how you answer questions. So I think you brought a lot of really important things to the table. So thank you for that. But getting back to your experience, you had years of experience in pyrotechnics and munitions, but when you transitioned, you weren't able to find anything. So luckily, you got a random phone call that said, hey, welcome to our school if you're interested in computers. You said yes. What was the school called, and do you know if that's a benefit that other people can go to?
Absolutely. The school is called New Horizons Computer Learning Center. I know they have a location in DC, but the location that I went to, that was in Richmond, Virginia. Yes, obviously they are very military friendly. So I was appointed a counselor over there, like a mentor, and he was the best. I mean, obviously the whole staff is amazing. They'll treat you like family, and they're really good. But all in all, the school, I think they understand the struggles coming out the Marine Corps, coming out any military service, and they're there to help. You know what I mean? They'll push you to the point where you're like, okay, I can finally understand. Even if you're not computer savvy, they'll help you understand to the point where it finally clicks. I always had a keen interest towards computers, and then to finally learn the ins and out of it and how to protect it and all that good stuff. So I knew I was going to say yes the moment that they asked me. I went to school, and once I was done with the school, they helped me build my resume. Once my resume was built, they tailored it to my education that I had just received. And once they did that, within a week, I had maybe 3, 4 job offers because they take your resume and they publish it out to people or staffing agencies who I guess they work with or they know. And I got the job on my first interview. Like, hey, you want the job? Yes, I do. I got the job. So, like I told you, Kevin, I was willing to take anything and everything. I took obviously at the moment at that time what was best for myself and for my family. So I took a job in. Do you know what Fort Lee is? It's about an hour and 45 minutes away from where I live. So I drove about an hour and 45 minutes each way just for that job. And I was working as a service desk. From what I know, that's when everyone starts off as a service desk. So I did that for about a little over a year. So check out how God works, Kevin. It was like November. I had a first sergeant in the Marine Corps, still in the Marine Corps. He calls me. Hey, what's up, Devil Dog? I'm like, how's it going, first sergeant? And he's like, hey, I know you got your IT certificates. Do you want to work here on base? I'm like, hell yeah, first sergeant, let's take it, let's get it. He's like, don't worry about it, not a problem. I just wanted to know if you were interested. I'm like, yes, first sergeant. Didn't hear from him for like January, February. I'm like, hey, first sergeant, what's up with that job? He's like, hey, it's still in the works. You should get an offer letter soon. I'm like, what? I didn't even do an interview. I didn't even do an interview first time. Like, no, so it's a direct hire. I don't know if you know what that is. A direct hire is, for example, Kevin, let's say you tell me, hey, come work with me. I'll talk to the supervisors. That's it. You're hired. I'm vouching for you. So that's what it was. It was a direct hire, and I am where I am now. So I thank God for all that. I went through a lot of struggles to get to where I'm at now, but at the end of the day, I think it's worth it. And I just hope that service members leaving the service now, they understand that there's a lot of struggles that they're going to experience as they're getting out. Just because they think, okay, well, you don't have a job, that's not a problem. I'm just going to use my post 9/11. People say that. But try to talk to those people again like 6 months later. You think they've used that post 9/11? They have not. And it's difficult. People leave with a goal and then all that just sidetrack. First-hand experience, I left. I'm going to be an ordnance man outside the Marine Corps. Look at me now. I'm pushing ones and zeros around like it's it's crazy.
I'm just excited to have you on here because this is such a great example of someone who did a complete 180. To be going from working on helicopters and fixed wing aircraft to go into IT, obviously those are two completely different worlds. And it was a combination of things that help you get to that. Also a little bit of luck, but really it was you understanding that you no longer have that title or that billet. You know, you're no longer a chief. You're starting over from scratch, as unfortunate as it is to say, but you do bring an incredible set of experiences and talents to the table. You do have a incredible network, which ultimately, you know, that first sergeant who was a part of your network ended up getting you your current job. So you do have things that are there to help you, but you're right. If you are not actively seeking things to improve your situation, if you're not willing to pick up the phone and call a bunch of recruiters, if you're not willing to say, hey, you know what? Ordnance is my love, it's my passion, but it's not going to pay the bills right now. I have to give it up and do something else. If you can't make those kinds of changes, you're going to struggle. And so it's cases like this, it's examples like this that I hope by us sharing your struggle, we can help mitigate that risk for someone else.
Right. As an individual, you need to be flexible. You need to be willing to adapt. Like that's what you learn in the service. You adapt and you overcome, and that doesn't stop just because you take that uniform off. It's gonna continue to happen, especially when you take that uniform off. You're gonna have to learn to adapt to new environments, new things, and you just need to be flexible, really resilient. You need to be resilient, not give up. You can't give up just because you didn't get the job you want. You can't give up because you're not moving anywhere. You need to have a strong system, a strong network, like you were saying, that's going to push you and help you get to where you need to be. And you're right, Kev. I definitely lucked out on that one. But with that luck, behind all that luck, it was a lot of struggles and pains and sleepless nights where you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I just hope someone hears this and they learn or they mentally prepare that it's going to be difficult once you're out, even if you think you have it planned out.
Right. And another thing I always used to tell the guys that I served with was when you get out, don't throw all your eggs in one basket. Don't cast just one fishing line. Throw as many nets, as many lines as you can, because it may not happen. I was very fortunate that I had an upbringing and background in aviation, in satellite communications, in electronics. And luckily, there were opportunities for me to find a position in that when I got out. But there's a lot of people that don't always get that. There's a lot of friends that I have that were artillery. I have friends who, like yourself, were in pyrotechnics, friends who were motor transportation. And so they get out and they're like, oh man, like, what am I going to do? There is no civilian job called motor transportation. Like, I don't want to be a truck driver. I want to work in IT. Well, guess what? There's opportunities, there's resources out there, but it falls on us who have already made it and have been successful to pass that word on to the next generation. So, speaking about that, are there other resources that you can think of that are helpful? You mentioned that you went to the VA and they helped you get connected with the Voc Rehab, so that's a good one if you guys are listening. You also mentioned New Horizons Computer Learning Center as the place that gave you your certifications in IT. What are some other ones that you're familiar with or that our listeners can utilize?
Sure. The easiest one, the most convenient one that they can use right now for active duty service members is take advantage of your TA right now. If you know your MOS does not translate to something that can be utilized in the civilian sector, start getting ready. Get yourself ready, because no one's going to get you ready. That's the first one. The second one I have, if you want to join the IT field and you don't like going to school and you rather teach yourself, I know CompTIA. CompTIA, they have a really good program where you teach yourself the basics of computers, and then they help you with the certification. They give you a voucher just for going through them. So if you want to teach yourself the basics of computers, you can go through that. Just keep in mind that most government jobs, the minimum requirement to get a government job in IT is Security Plus. So shoot for that first, and then build off that Security Plus. So Security Plus is your basic requirement that for a government job at this point.
That's good to know. Yeah, guys, if you guys have specific questions about how do you translate your skills, whether it comes to resume writing, whether it comes to applying for jobs, please feel free to reach out to us. These are the conversations that we're having with our network all the time. I myself obviously have an aviation and aerospace background, but I do have friends like Anoa here who are in IT. I have friends who are in the medical field. So if I don't know specific resources or benefits, I guarantee that I know at least one person who can help guide you and get you the resources to make a difference in you and your family's lives. Well, Jose, I just wanted to say I'm super grateful. I appreciate you being so candid and talking about the struggles, because it's tough getting out regardless. Even if you have everything planned, I think a lot of us still struggle with something. I had everything lined up for me as far as jobs, but when I got out, that sense of belonging, losing my tribe really had an impact on me. Other people, it is job opportunities. Other people, it's starting over new. So there's different things that we go through, but I really appreciate you talking about going to rock bottom and how you never gave up. You continued to fight and find resources, reach out to different people until you made it happen.
Yes, sir. Well, Kevin, thank you for the opportunity for having me on your show. I really appreciate you, and thank you for being my friend, and I never take it for granted. You are the team. Thank you.
I appreciate it, brother. All right, guys. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for today. But as always, feel free to DM us, email us, leave any comments, and we hope to continue to bring resources and interviews just like this to have an impact on the lives of you as well as your spouses and children. Thanks for listening to The Unwavering. Please rate and comment on Apple Podcasts. Give us a 5-star and a great comment, and we may just read it on a future episode. Also, follow us on social platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Be sure to check back with us next week.